AI that's been like a really huge concern, especially like in the music space, in the music scene right now.
If we start now to educate what we can do with it, then hopefully our jobs will be secure because we'll be using it in a productive way.
This is where maybe some disagreements may even come about. This is where it's going to be. I know as someone who's been in the tech world learning about these tools at MIT, I still don't know if I can integrate with it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because at the current place where it is right now, a lot of this tech is really good and useful for like pop musicians or people who don't have like our extensive like musical backgrounds.
Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Arabella from Arabella's Voice Studio, back for another podcast episode of In My Musical Opinion. This time, we're joined by Luke Colombero, who will give us his musical opinion too. Hey Luke.
What's up, Arabella? How you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing great. This is a really special podcast recording today because it's the first time that I've done it where we're in the same room. And so Luke and I were kind of geeking out over the audio and visual stuff just a moment ago, and we're ready to roll. So Luke, I was hoping you could just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are, your musical background.
Of course, man, of course. So my name is Luke Colombero, as Arabella already said. I've been a musician, guitar player primarily since I was about 10 years old, but only really started to take music seriously around the age of 17 during the pandemic. Just playing guitar alone in my room, like that's the best time to do it. Get all that practice time in. I recently graduated from Berklee College of Music this last May with a major in film scoring with a minor in video game and interactive media scoring. So I love composing for media, writing to picture, film, TV, video games, what have you. And something I'm definitely down to talk about more today is my new job that I'm actually starting in 3 days at MIT. I'll be a teacher's assistant for a virtual reality development course called Designing Virtual Worlds. And it's all about bringing kids from Harvard, MIT, and Berklee together to collaborate on building VR applications. They can be music related or not, but it's super cool to have that element of sound design and sound implementation into this, new future of interactive media.
That's super cool. So for those who don't know yet, now you do, we're having an open mic down at the Bebop down the street here on September 18th, and Luke will be accompanying us on guitar. And I started telling students about who Luke was and what he did, and I said, wait, hold on. This would be better if we could just broadcast it out there so everyone could hear about your experience. And it sounds like you have a lot of experience, especially in the tech world. And as we know, that's a hot topic today, especially, dare I say it, with AI and the virtual reality. So I wanted to have Luke on today, not only to chat with us, but to give just some of his insights as he's on the ground working with it. So Luke, can you tell us just a little bit about how you got into it and what that job will entail going forward?
Of course. So I initially wanted to just start off as a typical film and media composer, just writing for films and TV shows, until I took this course at Berklee with Dr. Lori Landay, amazing professor, highly recommend her. And this course was about digital narrative theory and practice, how stories are told in this new age of digital immersion. For one of our final projects, we had to basically create a draft of like emerging future technologies and see where we think these things can go in the future. I started to write mine on metaverse concerts. Again, back to the pandemic, we had a lot of people in like Fortnite, Roblox, Travis Scott, Charlie XCX performing in these virtual spaces to audiences in the millions. And with new like applications like Wave XR actually creating VR concerts where people can go and attend it in person, quote unquote, I was like, oh, this is a really cool new technology. Where can this go further? I kind of want to dip my toes into this new virtual reality puddle here. She set me up with Ken Zolot at the course that I actually took as a student last year. So I actually got to work on making this glove with haptic feedback in the fingertips with my classmates we were able to grab and contort sound waves in virtual reality. And we're actually going to still be meeting later on this month to, on our own time, to finish implementing it and see, oh, what can grabbing sound do? But something that this job is going to hopefully do in the future for me is get to help foster this new like age of technological innovation, not just for music, but like aerospace engineering and stuff. We're working with MIT's Aeroastro department and trying to see, oh, how can we use VR to expand educational capabilities? How can we help innovate and rejuvenate without taking away people's jobs and without
Sure.
stripping things back? And I know we brought up like AI. That's been like a really huge concern, especially like in the music space and the music
Right.
scene right now.
Sure. It's interesting that you say that. I just finished recording our podcast with Harrison, and that hasn't come out yet, but just a sneak peek for, well, I guess it won't be a sneak peek because that podcast will come out first. But to recap then what Harrison and I were talking about, he was also working with MIT in their lab, sort of, I forget how he put it, and I don't want to misquote it, but essentially what they did is they had sensors on the instrumentalist bodies to try to map out body movements for those with who were maybe more prone to injury and who weren't prone to injury. So it's amazing the intersection between these two worlds. And I know we've had some conversations on this, and feel free to disagree with me. I think this is a great forum for discourse, but I am someone who has always loved tech, been pro tech, and I think it really comes down to that education piece that you're talking about. I think that if we start now to educate what we can do with it, then hopefully our jobs will be secure because we'll be using it in a productive way.
I completely understand where that comes from, and I do agree to like some extent here. This is where maybe some disagreements may even come
Please.
about. This is where it's going to be. I know one of the big hot topic issues with like AI specifically has been the term of like, oh, we have to integrate with it, start to work with the technology. And something I actually liked what you said was educating ourselves on how we can do that.
Sure.
Because as someone who's been in the tech world, learning about these tools at MIT and being taught how to work with them as a musician, I still don't know if I can integrate with it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because at the current place where it is right now, a lot of this tech is really good and useful for, like, I'd say, like pop musicians or people who don't have like our extensive like musical backgrounds,
Okay.
who don't have like I don't want to say the capacity to go beyond like a simplistic
Exposure,
structure,
yeah.
maybe more exposure.
Yeah.
But then I know with like music that I've been writing in my own time, AI hasn't really been integrated in a way to help develop it. Like I do a lot of music with microtones, notes in between notes.
So cool. Yeah.
And it's very pretentious, of course, but AI hasn't been trained on a lot of those systems and those scales here. So having something, this is actually something that I do think we could use AI for, instead of using it for its intended purpose of like, oh, produce and master your songs. How can we break AI and make it like actually do something completely different from what it's programmed to do? There's this really interesting YouTube video from the channel Polyphonic. I'm not
I haven't seen it,
highly
but you
recommend.
should send it to me.
I'll send that to you. He brings up this really cool point of like breaking away from what AI is supposed to do and instead make it confused and totally go out of the loop by quoting history with like how we were able to expand upon the capabilities of the synthesizer and how we were able to make complicated drum loops and whatnot out of simple like machines here. People thought, oh, just press a button, it does this. But when artists like, I can't even begin to, we have so many like synthwave bands from back in the 80s and now who were taking this tech and just completely messing with it, warping it, even like back in rock and roll days. Back in rock and roll days, it's the
We're
50s.
still in the rock and roll days.
That's right. But like like Link Ray, he took a pencil, stabbed his amp speaker, and then had distortion before
Oh,
creating
right.
a
Who was that
run.
band who would kind of take everyday objects and made it into like more of a symphony production? Do you know? It's not coming to me.
I'm not sure I'm
I'll
aware
have
of
to
the
look it
group.
up, and if I find it, I'll put it in the description below so that everyone can have some nice listening to do. But that's really interesting. We had Meg Purdue on our podcast a while ago to talk about e-curriculums, and she said something really similar. Is like the technology that goes the furthest, you have to learn to break it first,
Mhm.
and that's how you get sort of these other results. Could you expand on that a little bit? Because I'm curious. What she was talking about is a little bit of a different capacity. How would you like to see the world break AI to get to this alternate use case for it?
That's something I haven't thought about before, so we're
Okay.
all going to hear this on the fly,
Sounds great.
basically.
You heard it
But
here first.
you're first. But basically, when it comes to expanding like these tools, I think of it kind of like, working out at the gym, you're breaking your muscles down as you're working them out, basically. For something like I know like there's like Suno AI tech that you type in a prompt and it generates an entire song. Personally, I'm against AI song generation because I love writing that stuff. That's what I majored in at Berkeley. But then I remember I messed around with this back with one of my like old friends when it first came out, and I typed in like Chinese jazz fusion synth pop,
Okay.
basically. And the AI, it couldn't fathom any of those terms
Mm,
together. It was like a funk tune, but it was trying to emulate what the Chinese language sounded like of
right.
Mandarin instead of actually speaking authentically like Mandarin.
Got it.
So it ended up doing this really weird sound that I didn't envision. And even though I didn't like the song or what it sounded like at all, confusing this tool made something that neither of us could have ever dreamed up in our own time. And I think if we bring up something like that in education where we intentionally make AI learn how to do stuff that it has no programming capabilities to
Mm,
do, that's going to be a way for us to benefit from it because we already have like asset tools for like building projects in the Unity game engine, basically. We don't need it to generate like a stool for us, a chair, a bed frame. We don't need it to
mm.
do animations and stuff. Just thinking about to the VR
Yeah.
class for students, but what could it do when it comes to creating physics within a
Mm,
game? If you want it to do something that's completely out of the box, like maybe say bring the speed of light down to the speed of sound, how could a tool like that visually create something for students here who are like trying to create new tech
right.
with this stuff here? And I'm starting to, I know I can repeat over like, oh, tech, 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 but I think if we're breaking away from the intended use and
Mm,
using that in a way to keep our own integrity intact, our own souls, and not just letting the AI think for us,
mm.
that can lead to new ways to implement and grow upon it without, taking away people's like work and without sacrificing the process of creation in it.
Right. This episode is sponsored by ABS. Together, we are redefining what it means to be a musical community. Rather than a single central studio, our presence is woven into the fabric of our city. You'll find us in boutique practice rooms strategically placed at the heart of the action from Rock City Alston to across from the Symphony in Back Bay. We gather in local pubs, breweries, at local open mics, channeling our resources into getting singers out of the practice room and onto stages in the greater Boston area. Do you think that there are current use cases for the tech as it exists? And it doesn't have to be AI. We could expand it outside of AI. But the music tech world, and I put that in quotes because like any genre, class, title, there's so much in there. but it's a whole world in itself. So do you see any use cases for how it's existing right now, or do you think no, we just need to start from scratch?
I do think there are some cases for tech to exist right now. I'm definitely pro virtual reality
Sure.
music tools. Again, like I said, I created this glove with some friends that allows you to grab sound waves in virtual reality, but there's also been some other tools that allow you to create like music completely with these virtual instruments in a
Mhm.
virtual space. I'm forgetting the name of all these. Like the second at
It's
times
okay.
you go to record, that's when the names go out. But there's some really cool apps right now on like the Quest 3, Focus Vision, and like Steam VR. Like even Maestro's a conducting VR game where it's like Beat Saber or Guitar Hero, but you're a conductor.
Cool.
That's a cool way to simulate the music making
Mhm.
experience. But there's also ways to, create virtual instruments using virtual reality tools, and now having motion become a huge part of the music making process.
Yeah.
Are you aware of like the Mimu gloves from like Imogen Heap?
I'm not. I'm a little bit more familiar with the like VR glasses and VR side, but this is a really interesting thing that I haven't explored. So I'd love to hear a little bit more
Yeah,
about it.
the Mimu gloves, like they're created from like Imogen Heap, like she's the artist who did Hide and Seek, that
Okay.
pretty big song. And what she did with these gloves is not entirely her. There's a whole team, of course, but she wanted to incorporate movement into her live performances outside of just dance. And these gloves that you put on, they actually function as instruments. You can set them up to any DAW and they'll like use motion to simulate like, oh, a pounding drum. If you
Hmm.
have this, I know the people just listening to this can't see it, but if I just do a hitting motion with like a closed fist, that's going to create a thud sound. Or if she like has an open hand, it can do a volume swell, spinning things around like a stereo system here, or even just pinching a finger together, any symbol one. She can do a myriad of things with this one piece of tech. Not to mention, I'm on the Mimu Club's Discord server, and they actually have a VR channel
Hmm.
specifically for implementing these gloves into other projects outside of just music creation. So we're already seeing a lot of people using these gloves as well as other tools from like Lucas VR is a really big guy who created this app called Singularity, which allows people to create their own haptic controllers in VR. We're going to be seeing people implementing new tech so they can incorporate motion into music making more so than just picking up like an instrument so far. But even then, it's like, oh, I'm moving my fingers, right? Yeah, but what if you can move your entire body and now there's an entire symphony or a wave of sound coming from behind you or with you?
That's really interesting. I remember in college we did a lighting and design course, and the whole focus was to obviously move the light with the person, but not just the person, but like the little movements to accentuate it. And it kind of reminded me of what you're talking about here. I think it's something we've been studying for a long time, and it's maybe it's just that I'm wasn't aware of it, but it seems like a lot of this stuff is really coming to fruition in ways that we haven't seen before, which is super cool.
Big time, big time. And it's just gonna this is the big turning point where we're at. We're either going to see, I'm anticipating either an expansion of these ideas, which I would love to see, assuming again, going back to like AI, it's like not taking away from the actual process of creation.
Mm.
But we're also seeing, I know from my time at Berkeley, there's a huge kind of, I don't want to say anti-tech sentiment growing, but it's definitely an AI thing
Sure.
going here. And I completely understand it. I'd even go to say I'm more in that camp because
Mm.
again, like I said, I love making music. I don't
Mm.
want to see corporations and production studios taking away like our capacity to do that. But there's one downside to that, and that becomes VR technology, extended reality technologies as a whole. That gets kind of lumped into the AI sphere, the tech sphere now. That's been like the whole AI buzzword. What I don't want to see is a reduction of tech and us degressing back in time because we have so much cool music tech now already. but I know we've been seeing people going back to like the DIY recording booths and the studios and getting like more acoustic instruments again. I love acoustic instruments. I want to make that clear. I'm not anti-acoustic stuff, but there can definitely be there. It's reducing our sonic prowess and abilities, and I want to make sure that people can at least exist within the current space that we're in and expand from within that, or expand with the new technologies without just doing an aggressive let's go back in time, go back to the times where we just had one mic in a studio and everything sounded like
It's really funny listening to music from like maybe the 50s and 60s where everything was tracked to a specific mono speaker, and if you like take out one AirPod, then you like are like, wait, where did half those instruments go? So that reminded me of what you just said there. But I think I always go back to is what I'm doing expansive or retractive? Just to what you were saying. And the use case I use AI for, and those listening, you can be pro or con AI. I'm not really trying to come one way or another on that, but I just wanted to offer certain use cases on how I use it, how Luke uses it, how we don't use it, how Luke doesn't use it. So the idea of this podcast wasn't just AI, but tech in particular. How do we offer different ideas? So the way I use it is to have to create landscapes for myself, thought landscapes. And so I might use it as like a brainstorm tool, but that's not to say that I replace my own thinking. And I think that's the important part. Like I might put in, for instance, if I'm working on posters, I might say, what are some general colors that go together? And then I create a palette for myself. And then I become the artist mixing and matching. So I like to use it for frameworks. But again, to Luke's point, then I take it one step forward and say, okay, how can I take this framework and really expand it into something that's uniquely my identity and has my fingerprint on it? So if you're listening, I hope that helps you sort of generate some ideas on what you think. But Luke, let's wrap it back into that class that you were talking about, because I know you're super excited about it and it sounds really wonderful. So I'm excited for you. What do you hope to impart on other students or other people who come through the lab? Like, what is one practical thought that you think, if I could only share one thing, leave this lab with?
Right. This is going to go not just with the class, but everything we've talked about, music, tech, even the way we think. Don't repurpose something that already exists to fit into this. Don't create something just to serve the medium. Always create something that can only exist through these ideas, through this technology.
Right.
And more so as an example, if anyone's confused on that, I know there's like the Apple Vision Pro, right? That new VR headset. They have Jetpack Joyride, that famous like game in the headset. But the only way they did that was they projected the original game just on a screen in front of you. So it's just, oh, I'm just playing the iPad game with a VR headset on now. But take a game like Super Hot VR or Half-Life Alyx here. That's something where you're fully immersed into a space and using this tech to have a completely new and different gameplay perspective. And this is just from a video game too, but this can apply to other apps and whatnot. This is an experience that you can't have without this specific technology. And it serves not just, oh, the tech. It's not here to, I want to create a game that makes this headset seem cool. It's, I want to make a really great game with a great story. And this headset's going to be a way for me to do that. That's the goal I want to impart on these students. Create new ideas that this tech will help bring to fruition. And that's the ultimate thing I want to impart to them.
This episode is sponsored by Piano for the Vocalist. Piano for the Vocalist is your ultimate resource for unlocking the skills to self-accompany with confidence. This largely free program is focused on teaching singers to use collaborative piano techniques for vocal performance rather than traditional piano skills, empowering you to accompany yourself with ease. No, I think that's great. And I think a byproduct of that, even though we're not talking about marketing on this particular podcast episode, is you become a lot more marketable and your things will sell when you create an experience. We are, I think, especially, I hate saying this, but our generation is seeking experiences. I think all the research points to that versus tangible things. So even the tangible things that people are buying, I think all point back to what you were talking about. They want to be immersed into a world, whether that's a physical world, a curriculum, an e-curriculum, a curriculum, or a virtual reality. We're all just searching for this sort of immersion, I think. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like, take just the movies coming out these days. We're seeing a lot of people just saying on like Letterboxd or YouTube, it's like, oh, movies are dead now. Cinema, it's all reboots, sequels, and rehashes here. Because what the production companies are doing is they're not creating new experiences for us. It's all repetition. And even though there's some definite beauty in having a continuation of stories and ideas, I think, like, to your point that we're saying, is we want to have new experiences that we can't experience the way we already have done before. And with like a sequel to a movie, I've seen this movie before, but it's on the same screen. But take a game like the Batman Arkham video games. I don't know if the listeners are familiar, but you play as Batman in those with a controller. There's a VR version called Batman Arkham Shadow. They created a completely new game, new story, new settings, new ways to play it in virtual reality. And even though that is a continuation of this series, the way that you experience it is so completely different that it just makes it that much more enjoyable, and it feels fresh and revitalized here.
Right. It's iterative. And I think that's the difference in art in particular. Again, feel free to disagree with me, but to me, art is iterative. It's always been iterative. You're not really going to have an idea in music that's completely new. It might be completely unique to you. It might have your identity or your fingerprint on it, as we talked about. But even going to something as simple as chord progressions. Like I was just watching a video on YouTube with Ed Sheeran talking about how he was sued because his chord progression was the same as another artist. And the judge sided in Ed Sheeran's favor because they said, hey, you can't copyright chord progressions that have been around forever. And so what's the key there? How do we create music that's unique? And it's to what Luke is talking about, is you iterate on it. You keep going. You turn something that's already existing in the world into something even more special and can serve yourself and others.
Exactly. New experiences, and if that tech helps bring it to life, that's the way it's going to happen, man. And I also remembered the name of the VR thing I was talking about earlier. It's Band Space. It's such a cool app. You have virtual like instruments in there, a drum pad, an e-harp, like so many cool things. It's Band Space, and I totally forgot that. Wait, no, Band Space isn't the one. No, that's like a rip-off of Guitar Hero in VR.
We'll keep searching.
We'll keep searching. I will remember. Please, don't look back on this and discredit me.
I'll tell you what. If you know what Luke is referring to, and you can comment below, brownie points to you, and we'll get it to Luke. We'll get it Luke's way.
I will remember, I promise.
So, Luke, you've given us so much already, but I always like to wrap our podcast with, if you could bring this all together and give us one practical thing to think about as we leave our podcast and go into the day, what would you want to leave the listeners thinking about?
I think you already said it perfectly. Iterate. And that's the one word. But on top of that, more so than just iteration and expanding upon what's come before, I think about like this piece of advice. It's the best advice I've ever gotten from my godfather. And it's just one word. It's listen. It's that one simple word. And that's been the one thing that I think everyone has kind of stopped doing here. Even when it's someone like me who's maybe less AI, more pro VR, other people who are more pro AI and less other forms of musical tech, we've kind of stopped listening to one another. And if we can take that time to listen, that's how we iterate and that's how we expand our music, expand our communities, expand ourselves. Listen.
Absolutely. And if I could just offer as well one piece to go into the day with is listen to others who may not agree with you too. Go into spaces where you can have positive dialogues about whether it's tech or not, whether it's technology, whether it's AI, whether it's music. Don't just go into spaces where everyone agrees with you because you know you agree. And that does it will reinforce beliefs and it's good to have values, but we want to expand our thoughtscapes and how we approach our music. When we have that diversity and thought, I think that iteration is so much easier and so much more beneficial to us in the world. So that's what I would leave our listeners with. But Luke, I just wanted to end with saying thank you. Thank you for coming on and being willing to talk about some of this stuff. I know that it's things that are really hot topics in the world right now. So I appreciate you being as open and educating me on some of the ideas that you've come to learn through Berkeley and MIT and your work. Thank you again. And if you're looking to talk further on this topic or other topics with Luke, he will be at our open mic on September 18th. Besides from his technology savviness, he is also an avid guitar player, and we're excited to have him at our event. So thanks so much, Luke, and we'll see everybody next time.
Thank you all. See you there.